I speak for the entire panel when I want to let you know that we would like to dedicate this entire weekend to one of us who's not here today, who is not doing very well. Our friend Kevin Hagen, who's Doc Baker, couldn't be here. But at some point in the next couple weeks, a group of us are going to get together and take the reunion to him. So I'd like to dedicate this weekend to Kevin. We were a kid. Michael Landon was the ultimate teacher for all of us. He kept us mightily entertained, much to the chagrin of some of the adults, I think. He was a man's man and a kid's man. So for us kids, it was great. For me, specifically, personally, he was the closest thing I had to a father after my own father had passed away when I was 11. And was kind of the only person on the set who knew my father had passed away, which was interesting. There was a point in time where people were looking at each other going, Halfpine's not really happy today. Yeah, wait. And no one knew. Mike did.
Then it on Little House on the Prairie, but it was Mike. We portrayed the characters that he wrote and that his staff wrote, but it was Michael Landon who created the themes and the values that we presented.
And to also, even for us bad ones, because I love what you said when you started saying more and more. That was something that was explained to people, and they say, well, you know, Michael was so good and so this, and I said, yeah, he was the one standing next to the camera when I was working going, no, hit her again, yeah, harder, ha ha. This was the man who's going, what if Millie did this, and egging me on. So he was sort of playing all these roles in his head and seeing the whole show, but he also was living vicariously through Nellie and Nancy as well.
Yeah, I mean, Michael knew the values, and he, whether he was encouraging us to be, you know, super nasty or encouraging us to be super, you know, sweet and nice, he knew the values, he instilled those values in us on the set, and then when we acted, he helped us bring that out to the audience and share that with the audience, and that's what our job was, to bring that to you.
Michael had a great work ethic, and that was, this is what we're going to shoot today, and if we got finished early, we got finished early, and we all went home and had a great time. By early, I mean, we were finished at 3 in the afternoon or something like that. We all went home 4 in the afternoon. If it took longer because some things that had just happened that we had to take care of, either a setup or sound or camera or something like that, then we went a little longer. But there was never any complaints. It was a great shoot. I'll give you a story. You asked earlier about Michael Landon. Our first day for Pam and I was myself, Melissa Gilbert, Michael Landon, and Pam. We were working in front of the house, the new little house that we just bought from Charles Ingalls. I'm standing there looking at Little Joe and Halfpipe, right? I was nervous as anything. I'm flubbing my lines left and right. Michael said, cut, cut, cut. We walked out behind Little House, and he said, what's wrong? And I said, oh, I'm just nervous. Just, you know, it's the first day, it's, you know, Little Joe, Bonanza, all this. He said, Stan, don't worry. I will never let you look bad. And that was a trust factor. The trust factor that you got from Michael was that you do your scene, you did your scene, and you knew that when he accepted it, it was that character, it was what he wanted, and you always had that trust factor with him, so you didn't have to second guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think even later that same day, Michael pulled us aside, just I think to calm us and help us feel relaxed and help us feel welcome, and he said, a couple of words of advice. He said, don't ever read your publicity, which was a great word of advice, and always try to get along, which was wonderful because we had a nice relationship, a close relationship with all the 4 of us as the Carter family, you know, and certainly with everyone else, but just as a little Carter family, it was quite a close-knit group. And I don't think you mentioned this, but Lindsay actually has a boy. Did you mention that? He's a little over a year now. So, and it's very amazing to look at these little ones, and they're all tall and grown. And
Pam's parents would look at me, because Pam wasn't married, and I wasn't married, and my parents would look at Pam, because I wasn't married, and she wasn't married, and they would say, boy, wouldn't it be great if they did.
Let me clear this one up for you. It wasn't us that had the crushes on him. We were the frog gatherers. There were groups of women who would come to the set and just watch him because he directed, it was hot, like this kind of hot in Simi Valley. He'd wear the pants and the boots and the hat and the suspenders and no shirt. And women would just stand there like... So he'd send one of us to get a frog, and we'd get a frog from the pond. Then he'd put the frog in his mouth and he'd walk over to the women and he'd go, "Hi!" And the frog would jump out. That's the way he made them aware of the fact that, no, he's unavailable. He also did the frog thing for a number of, he'd do it off camera to all of us all the time. Yeah, he'd send us to the most disgusting thing we could find. He would use to scare someone. I once found a flattened mouse. And we had a script supervisor, God bless her, Mary Yerke, in the beginning of the show, who was the most twitchiest. She was just one of those people who's just like this. She's keeping track of our continuity all the time, and she'd say to me, okay, how about in that shot you turned your head and you were right front, left right back, and right left right front. I learned how to flip those things. And she knew what everybody was doing, and it was her job to keep everything in order. And she had her script, and she had her notes, and she's little. She's very just nervous woman. And I brought Mike the squished mouse, and he put it in her script. She opened her script to take some notes, and the whole thing just went flying, and she screamed and ran away.
Poor Mary, do you remember when he put the spider in her cigarette pack and she went to go get cigarettes and the spider crawled out?
Remember the episode when everybody got lost in the snow? We had a soundstage at Paramount that was, it was originally built, I think, for to put ships in. It was very deep and they could fill it with water. Well, for this episode, they filled it with snow. They brought in snow machines, and for these blizzard shots that they had it was real snow. So Mary is over in her chair, and the script had gotten wet, and she's, as Melissa said, she is so fastidious, So she's sitting in her chair, and I'm going to show you. She's sitting in her chair, and she's got the script pages, and she's trying to dry them. She's talking, and she's drawing like this. Mike comes up behind her and sets them on fire. She's waving them and waving them.
He gets off the horse with this brace of rabbits, and he comes in the door and he hands me the rabbits. And I'm supposed to stand there and say, look what Pa got. And they were real rabbits, and they were dead rabbits, and Michael knew that would upset me immensely. He told me this story himself, by the way, at Leslie's wedding 25 years later. So he handed me the rabbits, and he said, "Now listen, you have to be really quiet because they're hypnotized." So I walked in with the rabbits, and I said, and everybody knew except me, the whole crew knew. I said, "Look what Pa got," and I set them down on the table. And they were standing there, and they fell off the table, and they landed, and they just went thud. And everybody just sort of looked at each other, and I looked down, and I looked up, and I said, "Wow, they really do sleep tight, don't they?"
I have one, since Melissa's here, I'll tell. Well, we were on location in Sonora. I can't even remember how old I was. I don't think I was even in school yet. I think I was 4. And Melissa has this spirit. But she decided we were all going to go trick-or-treating.
Oh, no.
And there was like this little hotel in town that all the cast and crew were staying in. So, and behind that was this old cemetery. And she dressed me and my sister up as Bleep and Blip, the twin aliens from other planets. She put a sheet over us. And we went knocking door to door on all the rooms to get candy for Halloween. So somebody suggested we go up to the graveyard.
I think it was me.
So we go walking up to the graveyard. Little did we know that Kim McRae, the producer, was hiding up there behind one of the huge tombstones with a sheet over him. And we got about halfway through the graveyard, and he stood up and goes, like this. And Melissa turned around and took off down to we're like, "Where'd you go?" It scared us all so bad, I can still remember.
she did The Equalizer. You ever see that show? And she married a man who's a producer there, Mr. Sloan, and she has 2 children. And she now they moved to Montreal. She speaks French, and her kids speak French. They were going to French school. And she worked a little bit, and then her husband actually was like, no, you should work some more, I'll make it. And she said, no, I want to stay home and hang out with the kids, and I want to go move to Montreal. And I figure, hey, smart, nice work if you can get it, cool. And so she's having a good time in Montreal with her husband and kids. And I believe she's getting interviewed for some more DVD stuff, I think, so last I heard.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Mrs. Olsen, Catherine McGregor, Harriet Olsen, is alive and well, exactly the same. She lives in Hollywood. She is retired. She takes in, I always say, stray people and animals. She talks like Mrs. Olsen, which sort of scares people half out of their wits when they meet her. Because she's like, oh my God. But she's really, really sweet and takes care of people, this darling. And then Richard Bowl, Mr. Olsen, he and his wife live in Chicago. He's still working. He does a lot of commercials and voiceover. He was just in a movie called Normal that was on HBO with Jessica Lange. So he's still like working like a dog, and he was really brilliant in it too.
Just to add to the where Mrs. Olsen is at thing really quickly, I just completely almost forgot about the story. I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact, but I'm the 2-term president of the Screen Actors Guild. I've been there for 30 years. You guys know, right? And I have a Christmas card list every year, and I send out Christmas cards. My staff sends out Christmas cards for me, and it's just the standard, you know, it's Christmas greetings from the president of the Screen Actors Guild, and I sit and I sign hundreds of them, and they go out. So I get one back in an envelope with writing on the front saying, "Spell my frickin' name right." And I go, "Who is this from?" And my assistant goes, "I don't know, I'm not opening that one." And I get a lot of kooky mail at the Screen Actors Guild, and I open it and it says, "Dear Madam President," or half a point, as I used to call you. You probably don't remember me, but you sent me a Christmas card and you didn't even spell my name right. So I wrote her back and I said, "Scotty, that came from my staff, first of all, and second of all, you just haven't changed, have you?" And she called me and she said, okay, thanks for the Christmas card. Very good.
I meet people in Hollywood who come up to me and say, I live in your mother's building. And she apparently is on like the homeowners society thing, and they say she runs the meetings like Mrs. Olsen ran the Grange meetings in the Prairie. She gets her glasses on the end of her nose, and someone has too many potted plants on the balcony. And they said it's quite something. She's very nosy. She has all the dirt on the neighbors. It's like completely the same.
Very beginning, just thinking she was so beautiful, and so, there was something about her that was so graceful and regal. I'd never been around a woman that was like that was tall and I don't know, and she was a remarkable actress. Karen is, I think, just an incredibly talented woman. And so as a little girl, to watch a woman like that and to watch her prepare and to watch her, you know, make sure that she had the flour on her hands and, you know, her wardrobe was appropriately dusted because she'd been baking a pie, that kind of stuff stuck with me and has influenced my performances to this day. She's great, and she's absolutely beautiful, as are all the women. I cannot get over how gorgeous the women on the show are. She's still, to this day, one of the most beautiful women I think I've ever seen.
We were just with Karen 2 weeks ago in Beatrice, Nebraska, and totally agree with Melissa. She's as lovely as she was 30 years ago. She's gracious, she's funny, she told the most wonderful stories, and the only reason she isn't here today is she's rehearsing for a play up near Berkeley, California. So she sends her love to everybody.
Do you know who Willie is in real life? You know? Your brother? Yes. Willie's in Newport Beach. Yep, he's in Newport Beach running some kind of interesting theater company.
And his work is he's not really working as an actor anymore, but you hear a lot of commercials on radio with Matthew's voice, you don't know it, but he's a wonderful voiceover artist now, and he was great. And people loved seeing Matthew and Beatrice, and he's great.
And he's so cute.
And he's really cute. I mean, he's cuter now. He's totally hot. And he does films too. You say he's like he was in Gladiator, technically. He does, yeah.
He did voice work in Gladiator.
Yeah.
He does a lot of all the work.
You hear him everywhere. Yeah.
I know that he was one of the blueberries in A Bug's Life. So that's he was one of the blueberries, and every time I watch it with my daughter, I try and pick out his voice. He won't tell me which one. He says I have to figure it out.
I'm not sure. There's a rumor going around the internet and in all the Little House things about me and Mary's baby. This was kind of a fun story. Rumor had it that I was actually, probably a little ridiculous story. I was actually trying to bust out the window with Mary's baby, using that as a battering ram. I was up there with the baby trying to get out, going like this. And they forgot to do breakaway windows, so that's what the cause was. And I'm a bull, as Michael often referred me as. I don't do anything quiet or softly. And I was not, but they had to redo the windows because they didn't do a breakaway. And I love doing that episode, actually, because I got to work with the fire, which I'd never done before, and the LA Fire Department, and it was very exciting. And no, it certainly wasn't my choice, but I was grateful for the time I had. Very, very, very grateful. Thanks.
Oh. It was our first bed scene in Little House, Pam and I in the Little House. And you know, I mean, this is something to where it's the same bedroom, the same bed, the same everything as Charles, Mr. and Mrs. Ingalls. And I said to the prop man, I said, I just have to do something to lighten it up, you know, to make it feel, you know, that it's ours, that it's home and all. Well, anyway, he helped me along, and he put a prop there underneath my pillow and all that. So we start doing the scene, and I grab this prop and I start, you know, in other words, I used it to push up the pillow, the sheets a little bit, okay? And all of a sudden I hear Pam go, well, you think that's great? And she goes like this, and we had on our nightshirts, and she pulls it off, and she's got a bikini on that's only made out of little feathers. And the crew just broke up laughing and everything. But do you want to know who put her up to that?
This is your first bed scene, you've got to do something. They'll remember you by. So she took me out to a sexy lingerie shop, took me shopping. Introduced me to things I'd never seen before.
Guessing. I was guessing.
That is a story that has never been said in public before, and I'm going to bring you.
Don't tell anyone.
You hear some secrets, not all, just some.
And when you played the role where you were pregnant with baby Grace, what was it like to
Oh, I wasn't pregnant with Grace, she was my sister. That's Grace. No, it's that kind of show.
Rose? Sorry, time warp, I'm sorry. When you were pregnant with your daughter, what was it
That was
like?
Little House in Appalachia, by the way.
What did you say?
Wake up.
Go ahead.
Well, when you were playing you were pregnant, what was it like being a pregnant woman in that time frame in the motion picture?
Okay. Well, it was an interesting experience for me to play a pregnant person, having never been a pregnant person or a married person. If you get where I'm going with this, or a person that, you know, I was just pregnant, it was the Immaculate Conception. Well, I mean, so for me it was okay. I was 17, so it was kind of odd, but I'll tell you, one of the amazing things about, and I've played pregnant people since then, and I've been a pregnant person since then, is that even with the fake pad on, everybody pulled out chairs for me and made sure I had water, and they knew, darn well, that you knew I wasn't really pregnant, but you were extra nice to me.
I was always nice to you.
But even extra so. People would give me an extra chair to put my feet up and stuff, and I kept saying, guys, you know I'm not, it's a pet. No, just sit down, Mike, it's okay.
Really good question. Nancy had some interesting situations she got herself into. The most challenging scene for me as Nancy Olson was when I worked with Billy Barty. And I somehow fell into a shaft in the ground, a mine shaft, I think it was. Something like that. And was it the same one? They really should have covered that, you know. But the only way they could get me out of the shaft was to find a little person who was Billy Barty. And it was not only challenging for me, it was incredibly challenging for him. We were really in a hole, covered in dirt. He was hung upside down. He had to get into this shaft and grab me. And we couldn't see anything, dirt was in our eyes. So physically, it was incredibly strenuous, and psychologically, it was also incredibly difficult. That was probably the most challenging scene I endured on Little House on the Prairie. And I have several. Besides being dumped into a tank when I was a mermaid was a good one too. You know, I did get my just desserts. I really did.
The mud wrestling, classic mud wrestling scene over him earlier at the end.
Yeah.
That was not mud. That was a cow thing, pasture thing. Watering hole for ducks and cows. Ducks and cows, yeah. They had to sterilize us after we finished that. Well, you know what I mean.
And if you watch that episode, I'm face down and she reaches around and shoves an entire wad of what is not in fact mud into my mouth. Thank you.
What a girl's gotta do. As far as these two go, by the time I finished with this one, I developed such a thick skin, this one really didn't bother me that much. And I was a grown-up and could thump this one on the top of the head.
Yeah, I didn't come anywhere near Melissa
No.
when I was on the show.
Well, you knew. She
I
saw
picked on
me.
Missy Francis, the little one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Who's the worst one over there?
The worst of these two?
Nellie.
Jeez, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough call because, you know, she learned from the master. And, but then she turned nice eventually when she married Percival and she had the twins, Benny and Jenny, and, you know, she married the nice Jewish boy. And look what happened to her. Gosh, I don't know. Let's take a poll. Who thinks Nellie is the meanest? Okay, and who thinks Nancy was the meanest? Oh, see, I think Nellie was the meanest. It's kind of iffy. It's a tough question.
You were marvelous because I was mean, but you were genuinely psychotic. I really liked that. I felt you could kill. You could actually kill. I was impressed. I was very because okay. I mean, that was the thing when they said, okay, now there's this other little girl, Mrs. Olson's daughter. So, and I'm like, what they're cloning? What are you mini me? What are we doing? And then I get there for this turn, and I see this girl, and she's wearing my clothes and my wig, so it's like a little trippy. And she's fabulous, and I'm like, how is she going to do this? Because you were like exactly the age I was when I started it, and I was like, this is so bizarre. And she did it so differently. She was chilling. It was sort of a bad seed, kind of cruel, creepy thing. And I've been kind of like, I was sort of imperious and spoiled and ab-fab, and like, you know, someone bring me a martini. You know, I was just this uptight girl. And then she came on with this, I'm hearing voices in my head. And she just, I thought she was going to take an axe to somebody. And so I thought, wow, she's scaring me. I was so impressed and so proud. I really was.
Did you see the two of them on a desert island together, Nancy and Nellie?
The ultimate survivor. Which one's gonna kill the other one first?
That's a really good question. I think because of the issues that they were dealing with and stuff like that, the writers were writing episodes that kind of went in a different way. I did have several episodes that I got to be really involved in. And then strange stuff used to happen to Carrie. She almost got the lumber dropped on her. She tipped over in the outhouse. She fell down the well, fell down the hill. But we did get to do the God Sister, which was a really great episode. That was a really good one. But I'm not sure why. I think it just had to do with the issues that they were trying and the values they were trying to achieve.
Dean and I just had this talk about the music specifically. The rest of us had to talk about the remake last night. But Dean and I talked about the music. Just now we were watching Country Girls and he said, how beautiful was that score? And David Rose just wrote the most amazing music for our show. And what I was gonna tell you, but then I ran out again, was that when I was little, I used to go watch them. And you don't see this anymore with our dramas. There's a whole orchestra that would play those little bits of music in a scene for scene basis. It was constant. Every week they'd get together and they'd score the next episode that was coming up, and it was just beautiful. Yeah, the music for the illegitimate child of Little House on the Prairie. The music was not anywhere near that. In fact, I said to Dean, it wasn't even music, it was a theme song. What was my imitation of it last night? And we're driving across the prairie, and it was, you know, anyway, I have my opinions about the remake. Some of it was really lovely. I always thought from the beginning, you know, they do a lot of remakes of television shows, like Dukes of Hazzard's coming out on film, and Beverly Hillbillies was made into a movie. But they've always done that when those shows have gone off the air and been gone for a while. And I had reservations about a show that, you know, is on 4 times a day on the Hallmark Channel alone, still, the original incarnation of it. And I had some concerns about it not doing well, and it didn't. And I was right, and I'm trying really hard not to say really bad things. So she'll say bad. I can say bad things.
One of the great things about having this reputation, having played someone bad, is that way when I'm interviewed or on talk shows and magazines, I can just like fly off the handle and say stuff, and nobody gets mad because they go, well, of course she talks like that. So it doesn't look good. Yeah, I didn't think it was a good idea. If our show hadn't run so long and been so beloved. I mean, how many TV shows from the 70s are having like reunions, people driving cross country to come sit in the heat and watch a bunch of actors from the 70s talk? Look at this. This is like church in here.
I don't want to disappoint you, but we never disliked each other for a second. We were close like this. We slept over each other's houses all the time. We're practically like sisters. We are essentially like sisters. And then remained that day. We were at each other's birthday parties. We did everything together. We walked down the street together shopping when the show was at its heyday. And people would stop and literally get between us and put me behind them and wave their fingers. And I'd be back there going, no, you don't understand. She's nice.
We were having a slumber party. We went to the store to get like cake mix, and people were trying to protect her from me, going, do you know Millie's at the store? It was just like, but yeah, that's what's so weird. When we first met, we like hit it off. We became really good friends. And I think it's like when you're friends with someone and you get to wrestle and hit each other, you know nobody's gonna get hurt. Because it's like, okay, I'm gonna whack you one. Except the time you almost broke my nose. It was a boxing dream sequence with the gloves, and they were padded out like even further, like our hands. Right, and because you couldn't feel where your hand was, they'd done it to make it safer, but you couldn't feel where your hand was, so you swung and you hit me right in the nose. It was like
You'd like to think that's because I didn't know where my hand was. They called us the Sweet and Low Waltons, which was completely untrue because we did episodes about drug addiction, we did episodes about rape. We had, some horrific accidents, and God knows that one was awful. And it was interesting because we get a whole section of people that would write letters saying, thank you so much for bringing this issue to light. And then a whole group of people that would say, that's not Little House on the Prairie. it was kind of interesting, and that was one of the episodes that people really had opinions, strong opinions about.
And to do one episode was 7 to 8 days is what we usually do. So you would go Monday through Friday, say, and then you had a Monday or a Tuesday on the next week, and that's what it usually took, was 8 days. Some episodes were a little longer, you know, but no more than a half, 1 day longer or 1 day shorter, depending upon what had to be done.
Actually, we had 2 teachers. We had Mrs. Manier, Helen Manier, and Mrs. Fife, Marion Fife. Mrs. Manier essentially was my teacher, and when Melissa Sue would work, all the other kids could go back to school and come and go periodically. I was there all year round. So I had to correspond the work from the school that I was enrolled in, the private school in LA, with the school and do my work with Mrs. Manier. And God bless that woman. She took me through my entire school career, including high school, 4 years of French, all the maths, all the sciences. I dissected a frog on the set.
Whatever enough.
Yeah, that's true. And it was not from Mike's mouth. I think I even dissected a cat for biology class on the set. And I remember being in my little schoolroom on stage, and everybody, the whole crew kept coming in to watch because it was really cool and gross. And Mike was there too, and he finally stood up and said, aren't you supposed to be working? She was remarkable and saved my bacon when it came to my school career. And Marion Fife, Mrs. Fife, these guys all loved Mrs. Fife. And Allison was in with Mrs. Manier too when she was there. She was a terrific lady. She taught me some really important grown-up stuff too.
My first day on the set, there were chairs for everybody, you know, Les Gilbert, Mike Landon, Karen Grassle, and there was one that said teacher. So of course I sat down in it. Maury very carefully came over and said, Charlotte, that's for the teacher.
They blew it up without us there a couple days before, and you have to understand about where we were set up in Simi Valley. So we had our trailers parked in one area, and then you could take a path over the hill or a path around and enter the town from there. And we'd all come in the morning and get dressed, and we'd wander down when we were kids to the school or, you know, to the set. And we kind of just do it one at a time, at a time, at a time. And the last day, we knew that they'd blown everything up, but my memory of it is that as many of us as could waited for everybody else, because we didn't want to walk down individually, and we walked down in groups. And for me, I came down around the long corner, and I turned the corner, and it was just gone. It was really stunning, wasn't it?
The smoke was still rising because there had been, and maybe they had set it up to be smoldering a little bit for the shots, but my recollection is the smell of the explosive was still in the air, and there was still remnants of it rising, and it was amazing because you saw, for Melissa and for Allison, for anybody who'd been there from the very beginning, obviously it would have been even more devastating because you see 10 years of your life up in smoke right in front of you, and so much more than that, emotionally and all of that. It's just huge. So the feeling was this enormous emptiness and just devastation to look at it all. I actually have some pictures that I've been given that during the day of the explosions, shooting behind the cameras as they're shooting and watching the buildings go up, and it's some pretty dramatic stuff. It's very powerful.
It was a big statement. It was our way of saying, we're going now, and nobody else is going to shoot anything else on the sets that we built and lived on and grew up on. This was our home, and you can't have it.
The only 3 buildings that weren't dynamited were the Ingalls barn, because that was actually made out of telephone poles inside. It was a very, very strong structure. The church, because it was a church, and the little house itself.
And the little house exists Stan has it, and we have been trying to place it for years. The Smithsonian doesn't want it. We're looking for a home for the house.
There you go.
We had a meeting a long time ago, and it was with Walnut Grove in Minnesota, the actual town of Walnut Grove in Minnesota. And that's where we would like to put the house, but there are some discrepancy of feelings from Mr. Friendly, who still has the rights to the entire production. So that's up to him right now. But me and Kent and I, the producer, Kent McRae and I, went back to Walnut Grove. They would love it there. They have the whole thing where they would have the intention of rebuilding the entire little town of Walnut Grove that you saw on TV. And that's where it sits. I have it. It's not standing. Someone said, is it still standing? It's not standing. I have it at my ranch. Michael, I asked him on the last days there, and he said, if you take it down, Stan, it's all yours. And I did. I had some other cowboys with me, because I rode horses and gathered cattle at the ranch right next door, even before I got the job on Little House. So for me, it was, I didn't live right there at that next ranch next door, but I worked there quite a bit, and he was like a second dad, the gentleman that had that ranch. So I knew it very well, and I still have it. It needs to be refurbished naturally, but that's the intentions, that hopefully Mr. Friendly, and maybe when it comes time, if we need to have a
write-in campaign.
What's that?
A write-in campaign.
A write-in campaign
Tell
would be
him
wonderful.
that you want it there.
Yeah, it would be great. It's a great little town. They could use the attraction. They're wonderful people, and it is the actual Walnut Grove. They have the Saudi there from when the actual Ingalls family was there, so they have all that history also, and it's a perfect home for it.